Besties, did you just see that? That was Ngozi, the most beautiful girl in the village. The same girl everyone feared, worshipped, and praised like a goddess for her unmatched beauty. Men fought for her, maidens bowed to her for her beauty. But on her wedding day she woke up and turned into this, a wrinkled skeleton-like, terrifying creature that made even her own mother scream. What happened to her? Who did she offend? Was this a curse or karma? Sit down, besties, because this story will shock you to your bones. Let's find out what really happened. Don't scroll. You need to see this from the beginning. The full story. Let me take you to a village not far from the hills of Nsude, a place where time walks slowly and gossip travels faster than wind. This village was small, but oh, their pride was big, and sitting on top of that pride like a crown on a queen's head was a girl called Ngozi. But no one called her Ngozi anymore. No, that name was for ordinary people. She had earned a bigger name, Beauty. Yes, simple and loud, just like her. They said when Ngozi was born, the midwife fainted. The baby was too fine. Skin so smooth it looked like she was bathed in honey. Eyes so bright, even the lanterns in the room bowed in shame. By the time she turned 16, the village boys no longer played football on the main road. They stood by the mango tree, waiting for Beauty to pass, just to catch her shadow. And when she did pass, heads turned like broken fans. Even women, pregnant or not, would clutch their husbands tighter when Beauty walked by. Not because she greeted them, but because she never did. Ngozi didn't greet. She arrived, like lightning before rain. She walked like the earth owed her apology. She flipped her hair like it carried messages from the gods. Her hips moved like drum beats in slow motion. Now let's talk about the competitions. Every festival, the village would organize a beauty contest. Young girls would come out in their best wrappers, beads and smiles. But the moment someone whispered, "Ngozi say she day come," you'd see girls removing their beads. One would say, "I beg, my pimple just came out. I know they do again." Another would cough twice and declare, "I think I'm running temperature. Let me go and drink small herbs." They disappeared one after the other, like yam inside hot oil. Because they knew. Once Beauty showed up, the crown had already chosen its head. Even the judges would smile wider when she walked in, men and women alike. One elder once said, "This girl no be ordinary. She go marry king from another land, na queen way miss road." But Ngozi didn't just know she was fine. She wore it like a badge. She fed on it, and everyone else fed her ego like obedient servants. Children stopped playing when she passed. Adults stood straighter. Even goats shifted road for her slippers. Her skin, so clear they said if Ngozi slapped you, your acne would disappear. Her waist, so shaped, even calabashes felt insecure. They didn't just call her Beauty. They feared her. They worshipped her. They excused her. It's one thing to be beautiful. It's another thing to know it. But it's a dangerous thing to use it like a weapon. And that was Ngozi's specialty. She didn't just walk through the village. She ruled it. Children playing on the street, they'd scatter like ants at her footsteps. If your wrapper accidentally brushed hers, she'd stop, sniff the air and say, "Did a chicken just touch me? Hope you boil that wrapper when you get home. And you'd better apologize fast before the next slap landed." In fact, people began to say, "If you want to live long in Umunnachi, don't walk near Ngozi, don't look her in the eye, and above all, don't smile when she's not in the mood. Oh, and don't ever talk while she's passing. Because if Ngozi bumped into you and your mouth was still open, slap. Yes, just like that. And then she'd frown and shout, "Are you breathing my air for free? Come to my house this evening. You will wash my clothes with your tears." If you were a man, better start cutting grass around her house as community service. She'd command you like a soldier. "You want to be a man? Good. Use that strength to trim my compound. I want to see my reflection on the soil." And the most painful part? She wasn't doing this alone. Nope. Standing in her corner like a personal cheerleader was her mother. Mum Ngozi, thick waist, loud voice and pride that could break palm wine pots. Mum Ngozi would sit in her plastic chair outside the house and shout with her full chest, "My daughter is not your mate. She's not just a queen, she's destiny waiting to happen." She believed Ngozi was born for royalty. "Ngozi, walk like a lioness, talk like thunder. Let these peasants feel your presence." And so the village trembled. But in the shadows of that big house lived a girl no one talked about. A girl called Onyinye. She was the daughter of Mum Ngozi's late best friend, a quiet girl, soft like rain, always looking down when she walked. Onyinye cooked, cleaned, fetched water, washed Ngozi's clothes, even her underwear. Ngozi would call her from the gate with a shout that could wake the dead. "Onyinye, come and scrub my slippers." They touched dirty soil. Sometimes she'd pour pap on the floor and tell Onyinye to lick it clean, just for fun. Mum Ngozi would laugh and say, "You're lucky to live under this roof. If not for me, where would you be?" And Onyinye? She swallowed her tears. She bent low, she obeyed. But deep down, the gods were watching. Because when pride dances too long on the rooftop, rain will teach it the meaning of humble. But shh, that's not for now. For now, Ngozi is still the queen of the land. Untouchable, unshakable. Months passed. Ngozi wasn't just a girl in the village anymore. She was a movement, a full-blown institution. They crowned her Face of Umunachi during the last New Yam festival, a title she gave herself, by the way. But the villagers? Oh, they clapped. They danced. Even though everyone knew no one else stood a chance once Ngozi showed interest. She wore a golden wrapper so shiny, one elder had to squint. Her makeup was loud, bold, like she was preparing for war, not culture. And when she climbed the wooden stage built beside the town hall, she cleared her throat like a minister about to announce Judgment Day. She held a carved staff. "I thank all of you for gathering to witness this greatness today. I, Ngozi the Beauty, your queen-in-waiting, promise to carry this crown with honor, grace and pride." The crowd cheered, though some did it out of fear. But just as she continued, something happened that made her voice freeze. At the back of the crowd, a middle-aged woman, just a trader, innocent, tired, was chewing roasted corn while standing quietly. That was it. She was eating. During Queen Beauty's speech, Ngozi's eyes narrowed. She stopped mid-sentence. Her jaw locked. She slowly stepped down from the stage, heel by heel, like a snake slithering toward its prey. The crowd went silent. Even the masquerades hid behind trees. Ngozi walked up to the woman and whispered loud enough for everyone to hear, "So you're eating while I'm addressing the people?" The woman, confused, embarrassed, tried to explain, my queen, no vex, I've not eaten since morning." Ngozi didn't wait for the sentence to finish. She grabbed the woman's bag of corn, smashed it to the ground, and poured a full bowl of palm oil stew straight on her head. Yes, in front of the whole village. The woman screamed in shock, her clothes stained, her dignity shattered. Children gasped. The elders looked away. A dog barked once and ran into the bush. And Ngozi? She wiped her hand clean with the woman's wrapper and said calmly, "Let this be a lesson. When royalty speaks, commoners chew later." Then she flipped her braids and walked back to the stage as if nothing happened. Mum Ngozi clapped the loudest, shouting, "That's my daughter! She's already acting like the queen she was born to be." But deep in the crowd, something was changing. The villagers were silent. Too silent. Not because they didn't fear her anymore, but because they'd seen something they couldn't unsee. After the New Yam festival, the news of Ngozi the Beauty spread faster than Harmattan fire. They called her the goddess of Umunachi, and some even believed she wasn't fully human. So it didn't take long. Suitors, tall, dark, fair, skinny, pot-bellied, began to troop into the village like bees chasing honey, from nearby towns, from cities. Some came wearing perfume that could confuse a snake. Others arrived in borrowed agbada, walking like kings that had misplaced their throne. But no matter who they were, whether prince, chief's son, or rich trader from Onitsha, they all faced the same wall, Mama Ngozi. She would sit on her plastic throne in front of the house, leg crossed, chewing cola nut and scanning the suitor like a customs officer. Then she'd say in her usual voice that sounded like she was announcing election results, "So, you want to talk to my daughter?" The man would nod fast, hat in hand. Mama Ngozi would scoff and say, "Talk to Ngozi? Just like that? You think she's like those mango girls on the street? My daughter is not a girl you talk to in public like you're greeting your cousin." Then she'd reach into her bag, yes, a bag, and pull out a list. The list, folded like a secret map, typed and laminated. On it were items like 2 bags of foreign rice, 1 box of human hair original, 12 bottles of red wine, 3 wrappers of George material, iPhone of latest model, 1 live goat, white only, 500,000 cash in envelope for introduction fee. And at the bottom, in bold letters, "After presenting these items, you may be allowed to book appointment to speak to Ngozi. No guarantee of approval." The poor men would collect the list with trembling hands, pretending to smile while sweating like roasted yam. Some would even bend and whisper, "Mama, I beg, help me talk to her. I will add something for you." And Mama Ngozi? She'd cough twice, glance around, and collect a fat envelope without blinking. But even after bringing everything, even after kneeling, sweating and bribing, the result? Disgrace. One came with a Toyota Camry as gift. Ngozi looked at it and asked, "Is this the car your gate man uses? Please take it back. I only enter cars with scent of Dubai." Another brought gold earrings and perfume. Ngozi waved her hand in front of her nose and said, "This perfume smells like what they spray on dead people. Try again." And one poor man, fine, respectful, well-dressed, finally gathered everything on the list. He smiled as he stood before her, only for Ngozi to yawn loudly and say, "Sorry, I only date men who speak French. If you can't say je t'aime, I can't hear you." The man fainted before reaching the gate. But Mama Ngozi? She never felt sorry. She was busy collecting loads of gifts from the suitors, after which she'd shake her head and say, "All these desperate men, they want to climb ladder to heaven with dirty feet. They should try girls on their level." Ngozi would giggle, toss her new wig, and continue scrolling through her phone like nothing happened. While Onyinye would be sent on different errands, sometimes she would be humiliated before the guests, call her different names. But she watched from the corner, sweeping the same compound these men walked into with hope and crawled out of in shame. Then came one fateful day, the kind that splits the village into before and after. News spread like wildfire. Prince Kingsley is returning from abroad, and he wants to marry a village girl. Ha! You would think a new president was coming. Everywhere was chaos, sweet, noisy, colourful chaos. Prince Kingsley, the only son of King Chukwunonso of Igbe-Tatakim, tall, rich, foreign-trained and single like one-day-old bread. They said he studied in London, spoke with an accent so clean even parrots bowed, and now he was back in Nigeria. But not just back, he was coming to Umenachi to choose a bride. From this village, not city girls, not Instagram models, a humble, cultured village girl, the palace messenger said. He would be at the next market day, in person, and he would pick his wife on the spot. That announcement? It set the village on fire. Women started dragging their daughters to tailoring shops by 5 a.m. "Chioma, go and remove those your bushy eyebrows. Prince is not looking for wary. Angela, this your wig is smelling like pepper soup. Go and buy human hair or borrow." Tailors? Busy like nurses in emergency ward. Makeup artists were fully booked. Even small Chisholm that only does birthday makeup was now charging 15,000 per face. Hairdressers? No sleep. Girls were fainting from too much hair bleaching and heat. Even Mama Neka, who had previously shouted that her daughter would be a nun, was now saying, "Neka, God did not say you should not marry Prince. If you win, we will do Thanksgiving." The whole village turned into a beauty competition zone. Everyone was chasing one thing, the crown. And the man holding it? As for Mum Ngozi, ha! Her madness upgraded. She brought a special tailor from Enugu, ordered a wrapper that sparkled like broken glass, hired a private makeup artist from Lagos, and she banned Ngozi from touching pepper or cooking. My daughter must glow like early morning sun. Her skin must not smell like kitchen. She told everyone who cared to listen, "This one is already settled. Prince or no prince, the crown knows its queen. My Ngozi is born for royalty." And Ngozi? She didn't bother with the drama. She just relaxed in front of the mirror, rubbing lotion on her legs and humming to herself, "They will all try, but I will shine, as always." She even laughed out loud and said to Onyinye, "Do you know what would be funny? If I don't attend, just to let others fool themselves. But I will go, let them see what the real competition looks like." 2 days to the market day, tension filled the air. Goats were tied in corners. Palm wine flowed from buckets. Girls were walking in heels they hadn't practiced in. Even the sky was silent, like it too wanted to witness history. Everyone was ready. But while other families were praying and preparing, Mum Ngozi was plotting and protecting. She stood on her balcony, wrapper tied tightly, chewing bitter cola like it was sweet, and declared to the whole neighborhood, "I don't want stories that touch the heart. Oh, if you like your daughter, protect her. The devil is moving round like a roaring lion, and this time her name is jealousy." Then she did the unthinkable. She hired 2 bodyguards. Yes, in a village where the only bodyguard people knew was a dog tied beside the barn, Mum Ngozi brought in 2 tall men from the next town, dark shades, black jeans, and arms like grinding stones. She said with pride, "My daughter is a national treasure. These village people might try nonsense. I cannot cry over spilled beauty." From that moment, Ngozi became untouchable. The 2 guards followed her like shadows, one in front, one behind. They wore black shirts that said in bold red letters, "Queen in progress, do not disturb." And as for Ngozi, she turned it into a full-blown reign of terror. With her new bodyguards flanking her like war generals, she stormed house to house, patrolling the village like it was her personal palace. She'd knock loudly on gates, raise her chin, and ask with venom, "Who is the maiden here that thinks she can present herself to my prince?" Trembling mothers would point inside. Their daughters, wearing new gowns, fixing nails, preparing small, would step out like goats headed for sacrifice. Ngozi would fold her arms, scan the girl from head to toe, and hiss, "This one, with eyebrow like wounded caterpillar?" She'd turn to the girl and say, "I own this moment. The prince is mine. You step down and thank me later." If any girl's mother dared to open her mouth and protest, but is it your husband yet?" Ngozi would turn slowly, snap her fingers, and say to her bodyguards, "Slap her!" Pah! One thunderous slap. No explanation. No argument. Then she'd raise her foot and order, "Now clean my feet before your daughter dreams again." No one tried to resist, because the fear of Ngozi had spread like wildfire. Even little children were heard whispering to each other, "Don't look her in the eye. The fear of Ngozi is the beginning of wisdom." She slapped a girl for smiling too hard. She poured water on another for braiding her hair in a royal style. She even told one poor tailor, "Cancel that wedding dress you're sewing for Chidinma. If she wears white on market day, I will bleach her skin with insult." Mum Ngozi? She was loving every second. From her chair she'd shout, "Warn your daughters. Anybody that tries to steal Ngozi's day will be collecting disgrace in full measure." But in all this thunder and fire, one person remained quiet. Onyinye. She didn't sew any dress. She didn't do her hair. She didn't even come outside. She just kept sweeping, cooking and watching. A day to the day. Early that morning, Ngozi sat in front of her carved dressing mirror, a smug smile playing on her glossy lips. Her mother, Mum Ngozi, was fanning herself beside her. "Mama," Ngozi said, tilting her head dramatically, I had a vision last night. I want everyone to know, not think, but know I am the chosen one. Tomorrow is the prince's arrival, but today is my coronation in their hearts." Mum Ngozi clapped her hands excitedly. My daughter, spoken like a true queen. The village must bow before you today. Let the parade begin." So it began. By mid-morning, the entire village buzzed like a disturbed beehive. Ngozi stepped out of her compound dressed in a blinding gown, shimmering like the sun. Her heels were imported, her jewelry so heavy they jingled like royal bells, and her eyelashes long enough to create wind when she blinked. Behind her followed Onyinye, barefoot, silent, carrying a small basket with Ngozi's slippers and bottled water. On either side of Ngozi were the 2 bodyguards Mama had hired, tall, dark, and mean-faced. They stormed into the biggest salon in the village. Inside, about 5 maidens were getting their hair and faces done, each one prepping with hope, dreaming of catching the prince's attention the next day. Ngozi didn't even wait. She clapped her hands and shouted, "Everybody out!" The salonist froze. The maidens jumped. One of them whispered, "But my brows." "Out!" Ngozi repeated. The bodyguard cracked his knuckles. The maidens scattered like rats. Ngozi walked in and sat with authority. "Give my lips a royal touch. I want them to scream royalty before I even open my mouth tomorrow." The trembling salonist rushed forward with her best products, hands shaking as she applied layers of red gloss. When done, Ngozi stood, turned to the girls outside and declared, "Now bow before the future queen." They hesitated only for a second. The bodyguard took a step forward. They bowed. As she left, Onyinye hurried to offer her a drink, but Ngozi snatched the bottle from her and hissed, "Can't you walk faster, tortoise? You want to make me drink dry air?" Useless girl. As she walked down the road, heading to a tailoring shop, Ngozi sighted an old woman begging for alms beside the road. Ngozi wrinkled her nose in pure disgust. She tilted her head like she had just heard a cockroach ask for a diamond ring. "Did something speak?" she asked sarcastically, snapping her fingers at Onyinye, who quickly handed her a perfumed handkerchief. She pressed it to her nose as if the poor woman's smell could damage her lungs permanently. The old woman, skin clinging to her bones, eyes pale with hunger, bowed her head and whispered, "My daughter, just a cup of water, please." Ngozi turned to her 2 bodyguards. "Is this what they now allow in my kingdom to be? Walking dirt, polluting my air?" She walked slowly, catwalking closer to the old woman like a model on a runway, heels clacking like judgment bells. Then, standing directly in front of the woman, she bent low, not in kindness but mockery. "Listen, Grandma," she said, her voice dripping with venomous sweetness. "Do I look like a soup kitchen to you?" The woman didn't answer, just kept trembling and holding out her hands. With no warning, Ngozi dipped her fingers into her designer handbag, brought out a bottle of Gucci 24K gold skin mist and sprayed it all over the poor woman's face. "There, that should help your poverty smell less offensive," she smirked. Gasps filled the air. Even Onyinye flinched. But before anyone could say anything, she waved her hands dramatically like a queen on parade and yelled, "Back to your dirt, witch! Next time I pass, vanish!" Then, with a wicked laugh, she snapped her fingers and continued her parade, dragging her poor slipper-carrying Onyinye behind. But no one noticed the strange way the old woman's eyes followed her, glowing faintly in the shadows. Even as Ngozi left, laughing with pride, the old woman muttered something under her breath. No one heard it clearly, but if they had listened closely, they might have heard her. The long-awaited market day. The cock hadn't even crowed its second round when Onyinye was already awake. She moved like a quiet breeze through the compound, sweeping, washing, and scrubbing with precision. Every bucket was filled. The compound was sparkling. The food was already steaming, yam porridge bubbling, fresh vegetables washed, plantains sliced and ready for frying. By the time the first rays of light touched the rooftops, Oyinye had already cleaned the chairs in the sitting room, dusted the windows, and laid out the breakfast table with clay jugs and stainless cups. She knew what day it was. Market Day. The day the entire village had been waiting for. The day Prince Kingsley, heir to the kingdom's throne, would walk through the market and choose his bride. The village had never seen such preparation in decades. Mama Ngozi stepped into the corridor, tying her wrapper and yawning. When she saw the glistening compound and the aroma from the kitchen, she nodded in deep satisfaction. Oyinye, you're truly the child of your mother. Very hard-working. No wonder my daughter is taking you along today. You're lucky, do you know that? You're going to witness history beside the future queen herself. Oyinye, still rinsing a tray, simply bowed her head. Yes, ma. You know how to behave, Abe? Yes, ma. Good. Now go and change into something neat. My daughter wants you to follow her as her chief maid. She cannot go without her girl beside her. After all, when the prince picks her, you will serve in the palace. Oyinye didn't reply. She had no say. She was to become whatever they wanted. She rinsed her hands, dried them, and began walking toward her small room to prepare. But just as she passed the hallway, a scream split the air. A loud, piercing scream, one that made Oyinye freeze in her steps. It came from inside Ngozi's room. Before Oyinye could move, Mama Ngozi dropped the scarf she was ironing and ran. Oyinye, she shouted, her voice trembling. Did you hear that? Come quickly. Oyinye ran. They both rushed toward the room and pushed the door open, and what they saw rooted them to the spot. There she stood, Ngozi, the crowned village princess, the most feared, the most envied, staring into her mirror with eyes bulging out of her skull. Her skin, once rich and caramel smooth, now ashen, wrinkled and cracked. Her lips pale and sagging, her neck thin like a stick. She looked nothing like herself, like someone had peeled off her youth in one night and left behind the shell of an old woman. "Mama! What is this? What is happening to me?" Ngozi wailed, grabbing handfuls of her thinning hair. Mama Ngozi screamed louder and staggered backward. "Blood of Jesus! No, no, no! This is not my daughter! This is not my daughter! Oh!" Oyinye stood by the door, too stunned to move. Ngozi turned around and ran to her mother. "Mama, fix it! Do something! Today is the market day. Today I'm supposed to become the queen." Mama Ngozi caught her and held her like a child. "Don't worry, we will fix it, my daughter. It must be village witches. Maybe someone from that palace wants to take your place." "Yes! That's it!" Oyinye finally found her voice. "Mama, should I go call someone?" "Call who? Are you mad? You want the village to hear that my daughter woke up looking like a walking corpse on the day Prince Kingsley is coming? You want people to laugh at us?" she barked. Ngozi turned back to the mirror and began slapping her face. "No, I will not look like this. I refuse to look like this." She opened her makeup box and began painting desperately. Foundation, powder, concealer, but her hand shook violently. The powder fell. The brush snapped. The foundation only cracked on her face like dried mud. She looked worse. Oyinye tried to step forward. "Maybe if you rest, maybe it will go away." "Shut up!" Ngozi screamed, eyes blazing. "This is your fault. You're a bad luck. Why did I even ask you to follow me today?" Mama Ngozi snapped her fingers in Oyinye's face. "Get out! Go back to the kitchen, witch." Oyinye ran out quietly, holding back tears. But as she reached the hallway, she could still hear Ngozi's weeping and Mama Ngozi muttering prayers. Inside the room, the would-be queen collapsed into her mother's arms. Outside the compound, the village was already bubbling with joy. Tailors were doing last-minute adjustments to blouses. Drummers beat their talking drums. Girls with freshly fixed weaves paraded like peacocks. Mothers powdered their daughters' faces and whispered blessings into their ears. But in the biggest house on the hill, the queen-to-be was breaking down, and no one could explain why. Mama Ngozi, pacing up and down the living room like a lioness trapped in a cage, suddenly turned to one of the bodyguards. "Go now! Check if the prince has arrived. There must be something we can do. Something before this event begins. We must fix this." The guard bowed quickly and dashed off. Ngozi, still in tears and fury, patted powder on her face violently, whispering to herself, "This is my day. This is my crown. Nothing will stop me." Within minutes, the guard returned, panting, "My queen, madam, the prince just arrived." "He's at the square!" Ngozi jumped up instantly. "That's my prince! I must go! I must be there! He came for me!" She scrambled to her wardrobe and pulled out the luxurious dress she had prepared weeks ahead, the same dress she planned to wear on her coronation day. She began applying more makeup, despite her mother's desperate protest. "Ngozi, no! Let's find help first. Let's get the priestess or the herbalist. Let's hide you before the village sees you like this." But Ngozi hissed and waved her mother off. "This face will fade. I know it will. When he sees me, it will vanish. I was born to be queen." With trembling hands, she marched out of the compound, ignoring the whispers from the guards and villagers already gathering around the compound gate. Trailing behind her in silence was Onyinye, dressed plainly in a faded bee gown, her hair wrapped in an old scarf, her slippers dusty and worn out. She walked quietly, her hands gently holding a small water bottle and a fan for Ngozi. At the market square, the atmosphere was festive. Drums beat, horns echoed, flute melodies filled the air as colourful umbrellas floated above the heads of dignitaries and elders. The maidens. Oh, they looked nothing like maidens. Each one was dressed like married. They were not prepared to be chosen, afraid of Ngozi's threats. But Prince Kingsley, a tall, elegant figure robed in deep emerald and gold, stood unimpressed. He whispered to his chief guard, "Where are the real maidens of this village? These ones look like mothers already." He turned slightly to walk away when suddenly a voice screeched across the square. "My prince, I am here! Your chosen bride is here!" Heads turned sharply. It sounded like an old woman's voice. From the far corner, a shriveled figure in robes staggered forward, lips smeared in red, her face sunken and strange. It was Ngozi. Gasps filled the air. Children screamed and hid behind their mothers. Some maidens covered their faces. The prince's guards stepped in to stop her, but before they could, the prince raised his hand. He had already seen something else. Her, standing quietly behind the chaos, her faded gown, her bare face, her calm expression. Onyinye. He stepped forward. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Then, with a mighty wave of his royal staff, he touched her forehead gently. "I choose you," his voice rang out, "as my future queen." A thunderous silence fell. Ngozi screamed in rage. "No, she's just a maid. She washes my clothes. She carries my shoes. I am the chosen queen." The crowd gasped again. One old woman whispered, "Wait, that old thing is the arrogant Ngozi?" Another hissed, "She insulted me just last week in the salon." The prince, now visibly upset, turned to his guards. "Who allowed this disgrace into this sacred square? Let her be taken to the ancient tree at the entrance of the village. Let her dwell there in her shame. She is forever banished from this land." Guards moved in immediately. Mama Ngozi fell to her knees, wailing, "My daughter! My daughter!" But Ngozi, still screaming, was dragged away as villagers turned their backs, shunning her like the plague she had become. And Onyinye! She stood speechless, frozen in the middle of the square, as if the earth beneath her feet had paused just for her. Her hands trembled, her eyes widened, but before she could even find her voice, a thunderous roar erupted from the villagers. "Hail the future queen of our land!" The drums resumed, flutes whistled, children danced, elders knelt in honor, flowers were thrown at her feet. That day, the quiet girl who once fetched water with a cracked clay pot became the heartbeat of the village. 2 months later, the sun glistened on her embroidered royal gown. Her headpiece sparkled like 1,000 stars. Beside her marched 6 royal guards, their spears high, their steps in perfect rhythm. She wasn't the Onyinye who once slept beside the kitchen fire. She was now Onyinye, the betrothed of Prince Kingsley. They stopped at the edge of the village, beneath the ancient tree, now dry and silent like the soul it watched over. There, sitting on the bare earth, was Ngozi, her eyes hollow, her dress tattered, her hair in knots, her skin roughened like burnt yam. She didn't look up until she heard the familiar voice. Onyinye stepped forward and said calmly, "I came to say hello to you." Ngozi flinched. Then she blinked hard, like she couldn't believe the radiant beauty standing before her was the same maid she once insulted. Onyinye continued, "I went to the chief priest. I pleaded for mercy on your behalf. I asked if the curse could be broken." Ngozi's lips trembled. "You did that for me?" Onyinye nodded slowly. "But he said the spell was cast by the old woman who was begging for alms the other day, the one you sprayed perfume on and called useless trash." Ngozi's heart sank. Onyinye's voice softened. "She died 3 days after casting the spell, and because she never reversed it, it can never be undone." Ngozi gasped, her lips quivered. Then she let out a wild, broken cry. She screamed, she begged, she pounded the earth with her fists, but it was too late. Her beauty was gone. Her crown had faded. Her pride had destroyed her. And year after year, the girl, once known as the fairest maiden in the land, became a fading shadow, a nightmare children whispered about when the moon was high. Meanwhile, the maid she mocked, she became the queen everyone adored. Hello, besties. And so the tale of pride and humility came to an end. The girl who wore faded gowns and walked barefoot became a queen, and the one who once sparkled like gold became a lesson carved into the tree of shame. Let this story remind us, beauty without kindness is like a flower that blooms without fragrance. It may look good, but it will never be remembered for good. Drop a comment in your own language if this story touched your heart. Subscribe to join the Besties Kingdom. Get seated for more shocking, emotional, and powerful folk tales like this one. I love you, besties. See you in the next story.